Hello, nice to see you, Aislinn and CJ. I'm just going through my account and I'm looking at doing a tutorial with you. So I just did a quick account upgrade so I can step you through some of the things that are available on Arena and things that you can get and earn as you go on and play some games. I'll show you how you can challenge a friend, including adding friends. Like me, you'll be able to add me before the end of the tutorial. And once you've added friends and challenged them, you'll be able to play people that you know or people that you don't know. I'm going to talk a little bit about some draft and some standard, but I want to start with the basics. So, kind of how to navigate around Arena. I know you've been doing it a little bit already, but show you where things are so you can find stuff. If you want to ask questions at any point in time, just go ahead and send me a message here in stream chat, and we'll go ahead and then step you through everything. The first thing I kind of want to show you is the overall connection, the overall UI, I guess, is what this is. Show you what all of these things mean because there's a bunch of stuff on the screen here. Not everybody knows what everything is, so I kind of want to show you what you can expect to find here, what it means, what you can do. First of all, you can see this major panel here right in the middle. This is going to advertise things out in the world, websites, promotions. You can get a food golem. It's actually, that's the fruitcake elemental card sleeve, and I'll show you about card sleeves in a bit, or some Bob Ross cards in the shop. So it's going to promote that. And there are new deals in the shop every day, and we'll get to the shop in a little bit. But they're always going to try and drive you to the shop here. So for the most part, you can kind of, if there's something in there that piques your interest, cool, but otherwise you can kind of ignore that. I kind of want to start up here at the beginning. This is your home screen. Your home screen will tell you what quests you have for your daily quests, how many wins you have, and how much your next win is worth in coins, how much weekly win XP you've earned, so where you are on the weekly grind, and what your next reward will be. So if you hit your next XP level, this will be the new item. When you fill out all the dashes around the outside of this circle, you'll get this cool little elemental guy that you can have. This here is our one of our players. We call her, I believe she's Spike. She is our. There are three. There are three archetypes of Magic player, according to the game designer Mark Rosewater. There's Johnny, who's kind of a combo player. Johnny who plays the game to feel something. Spike is our tournament player who plays the game to win. That's their goal. And Timmy is the person who is looking to play big things that have big impacts on the game. So Johnny's trying to look at Magic like a puzzle that can be solved. Spike is looking at it as a game that can be won, and Timmy looks at it as a game that is intensely emotional. So she's Spike, and she's fantastic. She has her own card. You can actually find her in one of the unsets, the Goofy unsets. And of course, this Nope T-shirt is available. You can actually buy it in some of the stores. I love that T-shirt. I have a copy of that T-shirt. So she's delightful, and I like her. Over here, you can see the main tournaments that are available and the different play modes. If you have advanced play mode off, it'll give you the basic things that you can do. Advanced play mode on will give you a couple additional modes, but all of the available modes are right here under the play button. So from the events up here at the top, you can play standard events, cube draft, arena cube draft, historic events, historic shakeup. All of these, any of these you can enter, and every one of them has different deck building responsibilities. They have different costs to enter. If you click on any one of them, it's going to tell you by clicking down here what it'll cost to enter over here, what the deck format is, and you'll what the how many players you're going to be playing with. And then you can see down here at the bottom what you win. Most of the time you win gems. There are 2 currencies in Arena to know about. There's coins, which you can earn through completing your daily and weekly projects. And then there are gems that you can either purchase in the store or win through playing tournament magic. Yeah, absolutely, CJ. We'll get to that. In fact, I want to kind of get us to that point so you know how to friend me and for us to play a game. So we're going to go ahead and do that second step right now. Let's go ahead and click on our profile. This is my profile here. This is who I am within the game of Arena. And whenever you want to make a friend, you can go ahead and see your friendship online. And once you've become a friend with somebody, you can add them here. You send your friend requests here. Once you've added somebody, you can actually click on them and you can chat with them just like that. Or you can challenge them by clicking on the crossed swords right here. So if I was going to challenge you, it's going to say friend challenge. Opponent is Bernadette Crash and Bash. We'll hit challenge. Now you'll see a similar thing that says challenge accepted. And then we'll play a 60 card best of 1 challenge match. So that's how we would play. We're not going to do that quite yet. We'll get there in just a second. Because I want to talk a little bit about constructed formats and the difference between that and draft. That's the 2 big things that you're going to be able to do online playing Magic on Arena. A constructed format is a deck that you've already pre-built. So, for example, these are my pre-built decks, and I have a lot of them because I've been playing Magic for a long time. I've been playing Arena for a long time. I have decks down here that are not playable in Standard. So they're marked with a little warning sign with a little triangle and the number of cards I would need to change to make them Standard legal. I'm probably never going to change them and make them Standard legal. Anything that is Standard legal, though, is up here and floats to the top. So any of these decks, I could play against you as long as we play in a Standard format. There are other formats that are available. You can actually see what formats are available. There's Historic, which is any card that's been printed on the game, in the game of Arena ever. So if you want to play a historic match, you can play any card that is able to collect. One thing you can't do is trade or share cards. If you have one account, you can share the account and have all the cards on it. But otherwise, you have to earn the cards as you go along. And you can earn those cards again through buying packs at the store. You can buy packs with either 1,000 coins will get you a pack, or you can buy some gems and buy packs that way. I prefer to build my collection through draft. See, I got a bunch of packs here. You can see when you get a pack, here's what happens. Let's just crack open this pack of Throne of Eldraine. When you open a pack on Arena, it's going to give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards and a rare. If you already have the rare, it's going to give you a number of gems instead. If it's a rare that you already have, they'll give you 20 gems. If it's a mythic you already have 4 of, they'll give you 40 gems. So, for example, I don't have all of the Theros. Let's see if we can open a Theros pack. So again, we're going to get 7 cards. And then Woe Strider is the rare that we're going to open up. So that's going to be added to my collection. And you can see what's in your collection under your decks. If you click the collection button, you can see everything that's in your collection over here. And you can build decks from this, from everything in your collection. So one of the things you can do is you click on plus. If you wanted to build a new deck, you click on plus. And it says we're going to create a new deck. We want to create a deck for Standard. So we're going to create a deck for Standard. And it's going to automatically sort our cards so that only Standard cards are going to show up here. So I'm not going to see any cards that aren't Standard legal. And then we get to choose, we can choose what colors we want to build. Let's say we wanted to build a black and red deck. So we're going to select black and red. It's only going to show either new cards that we recently opened, or they're going to be black or red cards. So you can see here, a bunch of black cards, a bunch of red cards. And what you do if you wanted to start building the deck is you take a card up here and you just click on it. And for each one of these stars, we'll put another one into your deck. So by clicking on this 4 times, we have 4 of them in our deck. We can't have more than 4. So if we don't have 4 diamonds, it means we haven't collected a full set of them yet. So I don't have 4 subtle strikes yet. So that's how you'd build a deck for constructed. And that's how I have a whole bunch of decks. I'm just going to go ahead and discard changes here because I'm not going to build a deck with you yet. That's something that we'll do together too. If you find this fun and you want to do this again, I'm down for it. The best way I have found to spend my gems and coins to build my collection quickly is through a draft. You can't build your collection with cube drafts, so I don't suggest starting with a cube draft. I suggest doing a set draft, and a set draft is based off of a recently released set, like, for example, Zendikar Rising. If you entered this draft, you would be opening a pack of 14 cards instead of 7. So that's already, you've doubled the number of cards. You've added commons and uncommons. You get to pick one of those cards, put it into your collection, and pass the other 13 to your left. But the person to your right is giving you 13 cards back, from which you'll choose another one of those cards, put it in your collection, and send the rest on, and forth, and on, and so forth. So you're going to be able to build up a bigger collection that way. Plus, if you start drafting, you'll understand some combos that make sense, some synergies. You'll start to see how sets work. For example, if we're going to draft Zendikar Rising, I would probably show you, some of the archetypes that you could draft that would be pretty good in this competition itself, but that would also, once it's in your collection, you can start picking up to 4 of each of the cards that you might only have 1 or 2 of, and build a full 60-card deck out of it. You can use wild cards. One of the cool things about this is you can build up wild cards here. Thanks for the follow, by the way. You build up wild cards here over time. I've got a lot of them. You're not going to have a lot to start out with. But the wild cards that you get are going to be cards that you can then convert to anything in the game that shares a commonality with the wild card. So if I needed an uncommon or 4 uncommons, I could burn some wild cards and turn them into the uncommon that I need. But then they're permanently that uncommon. I lose the wild cards. It's basically like if you've played Hearthstone, it's like a crafting version of Hearthstone. There's a little bit of that to this game. So if you and I want to play a game, the first thing we need to do is select a deck. What I would have you, if you're going to challenge me, if you wanted to play in challenge mode, I would have you go ahead and find a deck that is fun to play. And I'll play a mono green deck. So we're going to play that. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to challenge you to combat. So we're going to go ahead and hit challenge. So now on your screen, you should see a pop-up window that says, you're being challenged by Hurricane Andrew. Would you like to play? And of course, you're going to say play or yes or whatever the big orange button is. We're going to play a challenge max, 60 card deck, best of 1. Coin flip is how we're going to determine who goes first. So I'm waiting for your challenge. If you find the challenge accepted, no, otherwise the opponent has, it looks like you've canceled the challenge. You might not be ready to play me yet. If that's the case, say so in the chat. Are you there? Are you with me? Hello? I'm gonna assume maybe you got disconnected briefly or are looking at something else. Maybe you're looking away from the screen. I'm just gonna kind of continue with kind of going through what's here on in the game. So we kind of showed you. Oh, you got internet problems. That's okay. I'm just gonna kind of keep stepping you through what's here on the top row here. Um, the one place you're probably not going to go without your mom being around is the store. Aislinn might allow you to come in and spend some of your gems and coins in the store, but when it comes to actually attaching money, the last thing I want you to do is spend $100 to get 20,000 gems. Don't be doing that. You won't be getting her password for very much longer if you do. So yeah, if you want to stick to picking up copies of these kind of cool lands or whatever, that's fun. That's a fun thing to collect. But don't be spending anybody's hard-earned money for that. And finally, up here, one of the things is mastery. As you level up, you can see, like, for example, the next reward I'll get is a Tazim Elemental, and I'll also get a pack. You also earn mastery points. And for each mastery point, you can get alternate card art. So if I wanted to put a mastery point into that, I'll get alternate Jawari Disruption, which is kind of a neat deal. I could get an alternate Skyclave Cleric. You can't get the stuff here at the top without getting stuff at the bottom first. So you'll see one of the things they'll be recommending that you do is go through the bottom first and then go up to the top. I've still got 11 or so of these to put into stuff. So I'm going to just keep putting these into things. And each one of these is opening up a new card art for me, which is nice. So as you go through and you earn mastery points, that's what those are good for. Not everybody knows what to do with them once they get them. Let's see here. What else do I want to have access to? Mollusk Enclaves. Yeah, we could do Mollusk Enclaves. I want to get this thing. Sure. I want to make this one extended art. Ooh, I guess I can't get that unless I got both sides. All right, well. Let's just get these. We're just going to get all the lower level ones. All right, so you're ready to battle? All right. I'll do the rest of these later. Once again, if you're playing with a friend, make sure that they share with you their profile, their full profile name and number. Add them as a friend first by using the plus friends. And once they're friends, you can challenge them to a duel. And I'm going to send my challenge over to you. Now, again, keep in mind, whenever you're challenging somebody, you have to already have the deck ready to go. So you have to have a deck completed in your collection up here where decks are. So I hope you've got a couple of decks ready to play. While we're doing this, by the way, for you spending your time with me today, the day after Christmas, learning how to play some Magic, I put together a little something for you. Let me share this with you. So far, I went through my old collection. And I gathered together a bunch of cards and I put together a couple of decks for you. While I select my deck, I'm going to share with you the two decks that I got for you. I've got one that is a black and green deck that's called Elves Everywhere. It's full of elves, as you might expect. And I've got, again, a deck called Play It Again Sam, which is a blue deck. It's all about returning your opponent's creatures to their hands and making them cast them again and again and again. It's very annoying. I think you'll enjoy them. I know they were the kinds of Magic that I used to love to play when I first started playing. So whenever we get a chance to get together in person, I'll share with you those two decks. All right. We're going to go ahead back to Arena. Now, normally if I'm playing against you, I wouldn't want you to watch my screen. But for this purposes, we shall. I'm going to show you the deck in my opening hand. I'm going to mark that I'm going to keep 7 of these. And we're going to play. Now, if I didn't like my hand, I could mulligan. I'd see 7 cards, and I'd have to put 1 or more cards back at the bottom of my library for each card that I didn't keep. Let's see here. I'm going to play Forest Pass. Oh, no, I'm going to Lovestruck Beast. These are kind of cool. They have 2 different spells attached to them. There's a ability that sends it into the exile as if it were on an adventure. The first ability makes a 1/1 white human creature token. And then for 3 mana, I can play a 5/5 that can't attack unless I have a 1/1 creature in play. Basically, it tells the story of Beauty and the Beast on 1 card. Thrones of Eldraine is one of the best sets for story that came out just last year, and it's beautiful. Artwork is great. Storytelling is fantastic. Yeah, it's just impossible to do an FC3 without everybody being there in person. I would very much love for there to have been a way for us to figure it out and do it with online support and online pricing, but we just couldn't do it the same way that we've done it in years past. I love the Forest City Cup. It is my favorite thing to do every year. But I actually think that it's probably good for us to get a 1-year break on it. We've asked everybody every year to be super generous to help us out, help us make it a big deal. This is a year where it's very difficult to be asking people to be super generous when we're all kind of struggling to get through it together. So, all right. Some of these cards that I have are a spell on one side and a land on the other side. I'm going to play the land side. And this says it'll come into play untapped as long as I pay 3 life, which I shall. And then I'm just going to go ahead and play a 4/4 reach trample guy. And unless you have like a weird counterspell or an instant that you want to respond to, I think it's going to resolve, and then I'll attack for 1. But yeah, I've got some judge foils I've set aside for next year. I know that Stefan's already set aside um, a bunch of promo packs and a bunch of uh, uh, VIP, whatever the like super premium packs are. We're already thinking about next year. We're not going to be able to do it this year, but doesn't mean we're not going to try it again next year. So there's Yorvo, and I want to mutate a Starix, I think. I'm going to mutate onto that. Cancel. Or not. Well, in that case, then I'm just going to go ahead and punch that guy in the nose. We're going to play Lovestruck Beast. And then everybody else attack. One of the trickier things I'm noticing is you don't seem to have a lot to do on any given turn, and that's what's got me so far ahead of you. You have 4 lands in play, you have a handful of cards. In green, you should be playing permanents onto the board almost every turn. So either you've got a bunch of really expensive cards, or or you just they're taking turns off for some reason. I can't figure out why you would do that. So I'm going to play like all the cards in your hand are very expensive, and if I don't get out in front of them, I'm going to have a problem winning this game. So I'm going to put this on that. Thanks for stopping by, Wall. I appreciate seeing you here in the chat. So there's not a lot you can do at this point in response to this, as far as instants are concerned. So Starks is going to trigger, and I'm going to be able to find a permanent, and it's going to come into play. And hey, look, it's Garuk. Now I'm really far ahead on this board. And we're going to attack. My belief is that your instants aren't going to affect any of my creatures anytime soon. I could have probably brought you down to 1 if I'd have mutated on that guy, but I'm okay with you at 3 with having a bunch of big threats. I'm interested to see for you to share with me what's in your hand, because I'm not entirely sure what you're doing if you're not casting. All expensive and no useful instances. Okay. So I might want to talk with you a little bit about deck building, because that for me is why I play draft. I really like deck building. I'm just going to kind of play the part of a guy who's looking to maximize the amount of damage I'm going to do this turn. And then we're going to hit next. We're going to all attack. And I'm going to reduce you to almost nothing or negative numbers probably. Ooh, I almost got you to negative your starting total. That's a big deal. So let's talk a little bit about deck building. Because what happened here is you saw what a really efficient deck does. And what happens... Hey, Aislinn, how you doing? You saw what a really efficient deck does. And... Oh, very good. So you're using your starter deck pre-made. What I'm going to do is... Yeah, it sounds like you had a terrible draw. Let's go ahead and step you through how to build a deck using what you got. And I'm going to show you how I build my decks. And I'm going to build what is called, and on this format, it's called Artisan. So Artisan in this format means no rare cards, only commons and uncommons, okay? And that's a restriction I'm going to put on myself because I have a big collection. I have lots and lots of cards, and I don't expect you to compete with me. So I'm going to build an Artisan deck, and I'm going to show you how I do it so that when you are building a deck, you'll get an idea what should go into a deck as far as your 60 cards should be, so that you can have consistent plays on turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4. It is one of the hardest things to learn if you don't have somebody to teach you about this game. And I'm going to do it in green because we were both just playing a green deck. So the first thing we need to know is we need to know how much mana do we expect to have on any given turn. For that, we need to understand a couple of things. The first thing I like to think about is we know on turn 1 we're going to have 1 land. On turn 2 we're going to have 2 lands. And on most turn 3s we're going to have 3 lands. And after that we don't know. Okay? So because we don't know what's going to happen after turn 3, we're going to mulligan any 1 land or 0 land hands. We're going to mulligan those. every time. We want to start usually with 2 to 3 land cards in our hand. 4 is okay. 5 is almost too many, and 6 and 7 are way too many. So we don't want to start with like hands with 6 or 7 cards in them, 6 or 7 land cards in them, because it means we won't be doing anything for many, many turns. So, assuming that we know what turn 1 will look like, turn 2 will look like, and turn 3 will probably look like, we'll have 1 mana, 2 mana, and 3 mana. We want to build toward that end of the curve, okay? What am I talking about when I talk about curve? Well, I want to talk about what I can do with the mana that I have in the pool as far as the cards are in my hand. So on turn 1, I can spend 1 mana. 1 mana spells tend to be very weak. So there's a pretty big difference between an efficient 1 mana spell and an inefficient 1 mana spell. Most of the time when I'm looking for 1 mana spell, I want it to be synergistic with the deck that I'm building. So for example, one very powerful 1 mana spell that I could cast or could put in a deck is this guy. He's a pudgy little innkeeper, and he's a man after my own heart. If I knew how to build a cosplay, this is the guy I would cosplay. I love Edgewall Innkeeper. Why do I like him? Well, you remember those spells that I was casting that had 2 different things to them? They had you could cast 1/2 of the spell and then send them on an adventure like this, and then the second half of the spell you could cast later on and get a creature out of the deal. That's what this guy exploits. So not only am I getting creatures that have 2 cards on 1 piece of cardboard, but now I'm even getting more value from those cards because he allows me to draw a card every time I cast one of those creature spells. So if I was going to be really efficient and play a dedicated adventure deck, I'd probably want to play him on turn 1. Other things I might want to play on turn 1 include this guy. This guy's got Death Touch. He's a rogue. There are decks that want you to have party members. And a party member, rogue is one of the party member types. Party members are rogues, warriors, um, clerics, and wizards. And if you have one of each of those creature types in play, your cards get better. So if I wanted to play a deck that had a party mechanic, I'd probably want to play him on turn 1, especially if I didn't have any other cards that had adventures. So from the start, I want to kind of get an idea of what I'd like to play. I'm going to recommend that you buy some Thrones of Eldraine cards over the course of earning some coins and put together a deck kind of like this. This is the adventure deck. I'm going to start with 4 of my innkeeper buddy because he makes me feel happy. So now that I know I'm going to be playing an adventure deck, I'm going to type in adventure up here and look at all of the cards that can affect adventure. Oh, you want to do a Hydra and Drake deck? We could do that. Let's go ahead and get out of this then. Let's start with Hydra. Let's look and see what our choices are. So we've got Thunderous Snapper, which is a 4/4 Hydra for 4, and it says whenever you cast a spell with converted mana cost 5 or greater, draw a card. So this wants you to have lots of mana and play big spells every turn. This one is a Hydra that can be as big as you want to, depending on how much mana you put into it. So it could be a 2 mana 1/1, or it could be a 6 mana 5/5. It can fit pretty much anywhere on your curve. And this one says whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on another non-Hydra creature, you can put a +1/+1 counter on this. Okay? And then there's this thing called Hydra's Growth, which is an aura that can turn things into a kind of a Hydra. So there's not a lot I can do in uncommon with Hydra. Let's see if there are more for me to do with Drakes. We're going to go ahead and assume that Drakes are blue. So let's type in Drake. So here are my choices for Drakes. And again, I don't have a lot because I'm not playing any rares. I have a thing that makes Drake tokens if I play things with Kicker. I have Tide Skimmer, which says attack with multiple flying creatures. And then I've got Windstorm Drake that says other creatures with flying get +1/+0. So the thing about Hydras and Drakes is they don't have a lot of tribal synergy, right? A tribal synergy is all the creatures in a tribe gain some sort of benefit. So, for example, if I was looking at tribes like, let's take a look at knights. We're going to look at the colors that knights come in, primarily black and white. And I can further drill down into, I just want things that have knight as a creature type. So I'm just going to look at creatures that are knights. So now I've got page after page of creatures that are knights that I can work with, and several of them have synergies. So, like, for example, if I played this Venerable Knight, when Venerable Knight dies, I get to make another knight in play better. So if I'm playing a Knight's deck, this card is very, very good. And then I can put counters on things with that guy. This guy's a knight that has first strike. This knight has an adventure that taps creatures and is a flying knight, which is kind of nice. We've got Sir Alan, which makes all of your attacking creatures +1/+1, which is kind of cool. And then we got Sir Conrad that says whenever another creature dies or a creature card goes to the graveyard, Sir Alan is going to deal 1 damage to an opponent, which is kind of neat. Plus, he looks really cool. So maybe I'll build a knight deck. But right now, one of the things I'm noticing in what you're looking for is there's not a lot for Hydras or Drakes in the commons and uncommons. But let's just do one last thing. We're going to type in Hydra. We're going to type in +1/+1. Because one of the things about Hydras is +1s, +1 counters are a big part of the Hydra world. So if we're going to play our Hydra, let's play our Hydra here. He wants to play us to play cards with +1/+1 counters. You know what else has lots of +1/+1 counters is white. So let's take a look and see what cards give us +1/+1 counters. And also put counter. So we're looking for searches that have +1 and counter in it. This one doesn't matter very much because we're not going to be playing a whole bunch of knights in our Hydra +1 counter deck matters. But this one actually plays really well. Knight Angel deck. Okay, that might be pretty good. Let's do a +1/+1 counter matters deck. Let's just try this for a little bit. So we're gonna try this guy because he's 2 mana and we can put counters on things. And let's see here. That cares about creatures that have vigilance. This one makes +1/+1 counters better, but doesn't have counters of its own. But that also cares about cards that have adventure. That's not that exciting. That one cares about having warriors in play. This one only gets counters if damage is dealt to it. This one puts counters on other creatures. So we're going to play that guy. This one gets counters for creatures in your party, and just so happens that party members include clerics, but not hydras. Maybe Emiria Captains hangs out. Ooh, this guy cares about lands coming into play. We will be playing lands, so let's play Prowling Felidar. Let's see here. What else we got? We can play Jungle Driver, but that guy's very slow at getting counters. I like this guy because he gives counters to other creatures. This one cares about mutates. Gnarly Colony can be kicked for some counters. I don't want to do that if I don't have to. Let's see here. This one gets counters if you got big creatures in play, so that seems pretty good. Vertilid has counters that can turn into things you can search for lands. Pride Malkin put a +1/+1 counter, and then it gives your counter creatures trample. This has a landfall counter as well, so we'll put that into play. Ooh, this one's pretty good. This one gives other green creatures +1/+1 counters. But if we're playing 2 colors, it might not be so good because it's not going to help our white creatures at all. That one cares only if you're playing a bunch of the same name cards. This one cares if creatures die. We don't really want creatures to die. This one's actually kind of interesting because it makes a bunch of little 1/1 green insect tokens. I like Ivy Elemental because that just is a bunch of X counters. And we'll come over here and we'll find that Conclave Mentor is really useful because that cares about counters as well. So now I have too many cards. You can see how it says I have 75 out of 60 cards, and I haven't even started looking at removal spells or enhancement spells like auras, but I've got a pretty good place to start from. So what we're going to do is go back in here and we're going to turn off creature for our search. And we're going to take a look at enchantments because we remember that Hydra's Growth exists. So we want to make sure that we have some Hydra's Growths in here. Is there anything else that does +1/+1 counters? When you gain life, put counters on things. Nope, that seems to be pretty much it for enchantments. So now we're going to go ahead and clear everything. We still have editing to do, but we still also have to add some way to get rid of opponent's stuff. So one of the things we can do to get rid of an opponent's thing in white is we can exile it. One of the best cards in white to use for exiling is... Where are you? Where are you now? Type in exile. I keep forgetting. Just use the search button. Search will help you with that. You can use some glass caskets. That'll take care of little creatures. Banishing Lights fixes just about everything. And then in green, you can use some destroy artifact or destroy enchantment spells if you want to. I tend to stay away from that stuff for now. So now we really got too many cards in here. So we really need to start editing back. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a look here. Oh, and there's one last thing I want to do. One last thing I want to do. Oh, it might be a rare. Okay. I'm sticking with the Artisan theme, so I'm not going to go into the rares. But there are some rares, obviously, that have landfall that do +1/+1 counters as well. But for this, for our Artisan deck that we're doing, and we're going to give it a name. We're going to call it Artisan +1. That's the name of our deck, Artisan +1. For our Artisan +1 deck, we want to make sure that we have those in there. We probably only want to play 3 Hydra's Growth. We're going to cut Renata because we're not playing a lot of green. We're not playing only green spells. The other thing I want to do is I want you to notice that we want to have things to do on turns 1, 2, and 3. We don't currently have a lot to do on turn 1, which is okay. We got a lot to do on turn 2, a lot to do on turn 3, and then turn 4 and 5 we don't need as much to do because as we get higher on in the curve, we'll need fewer things to do that. So one of the things is this kind of slow is Prowling Felidar. So we're going to kind of slow down, probably knock that down to maybe 1 or 2. Maybe 2. I'm going to knock down Basri's Acolytes to 3. And I'm going to cut down to 2 Iridescent Hornbeams. Because they're at the top of our mana curve right now. That's the most that we're going to have. It's the latest in the game. And we don't need to draw multiples of those cards. We can slow down on some of those cards. We don't have to have 4 of all of those. Whereas we kind of want to have the best of what we can do 4 of in the lower mana curves. So what's the best we can do? This guy is kind of slow in that he only can enhance a creature that already has a counter on it unless you pay 6 mana. That's a lot of mana. So maybe he's not that good. We're going to go ahead and scale him down a bit. He can put a counter on himself or somebody else. He cares about having big fat creatures in play, which we will if we can spend some big money on our Ivy Elemental and Wildwood Scourge and get some counters on things. We'll be doing okay. I think Fertilid's a little on the slow side. It's a 3-mana 2/2, and it's there so that we can find additional lands. Well, for deck names, one of the things I like to do with my deck name is make sure that it describes what the deck is trying to accomplish. So like I said, I called this an Artisan +1 deck because it has +1 counters. It is an Artisan format legal deck, which means it's a common format, common and uncommon format. So when I look through my deck collection, I know right away what it is. I don't recommend naming it after like people. Like you can name a deck John Stamos if you want to, but what does that tell you about what's inside the deck? You know, you can name it Popeye's Chicken, and it's not going to tell you anything about what's inside the deck. So make sure your deck names reflect the color of the deck, the purpose of the deck, and give you a reason to remember what it is without having to look at it look at the deck every time you open up the screen. So none of these I want. All right, so now we're down to 3-drops. I'm going to take a look at these 3-drops. I'm going to cut the Fertilids because I don't think they really help us a lot. We still have 9 cards we need to cut. And we also need to look at our lands, but we'll get to that in a second. It's going to default you at 24 lands, and that's usually right, but sometimes you're off by 1 or 2 cards. So let's see here. Hornbeetle, Conclave Mentor, Banishing Light, Hydra's Growth, Pride Malkin, Scythe Cat, Acolyte, Felidar, Hornbeetle. And we've got 4 of each of these. We probably don't need 4 Ivy Elementals. Let's cut these. That brings us down to 65 cards. We only need to cut 5 more cards to go. I definitely want to leave in the glass caskets, 3 of those. I'm also going to cut 1 Banishing Light, so we're going to go to 6 of those. And that leaves us a playset of something, or a 2 and a 2 that we need to cut. Or we can cut a couple of things here. Now that we're trimming, I could trim. I don't want to trim the Wildwood Scourge, because that's the powerhouse for this deck. That's the reason we're playing it, because every time something else gets a counter, Wildwood Scourge gets a counter. Okay. So let's see here. How good is Prowling Felidar? It starts out only a 2/3, and it really wants me to play it when I have 4 lands and a land in hand, and I can play that land. So it acts kind of like a 5-drop. I'm going to cut it. So that's 2 of the cards I need to cut. Whenever you get to this point and you're noticing I'm only playing 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 white cards, you start to think maybe I should go mono green. But for the sake of argument, I'm not going to go mono green here. However, I am noticing that double white is very tricky. I'm going to... I think I'm going to leave that. Yeah, I think I'm just going to hold on to that. I'll take it down to 2. We'll take that down to 2. Again, I'm cutting from the top end of my curve. I'm not cutting everything out of the top end of my curve. I want to make sure that I have powerful late game things to do. But I'm more likely to edit the most expensive cards, because those are the cards that have to have the most impact in a game. Does that make sense? If it doesn't make sense, let me know, and I'll explain that a little bit further. But usually, to sum it up, the amount of mana that it costs to play a spell is directly relevant to how powerful the spell is. The more mana you pay, the more powerful the spell is most of the time. There are always exceptions in Magic, but most of the time that's the case. All right, now that I'm down to 61 cards, I have a choice. I can cut 1 more card out of the main, which I don't really want to do, or I can cut a land. And I think that cutting a land is fair. So now we're down to 23 lands. Our curve is pretty low because we got things to do on turn 2, 3, and 4. Not a lot to do on turn 1, which turns out is okay in Artisan, because the dual lands that we have access to aren't great, and almost all of them come into play tapped. So what am I talking about? Well, let me show you. By the way, one of the cool things about Magic is you can decorate your deck in a lot of different ways, including choosing what basic lands you want to use. Right now, the artwork on the basic lands I'm using is by Bob Ross. You can ask your mom who Bob Ross is if you don't know who Bob Ross is. If you don't, he's best known as being a guy from the 70s with a big fro who does art on public television and is super mellow. And the phrase "happy little trees" comes from Bob Ross. This is his artwork, and it turns out it's awesome on Magic the Gathering lands. So I'm very happy to have some Bob Ross paintings in here. But we also need to have ways that make our deck work a little bit better. I mentioned to you that some cards have lands stapled to their backs, where you can play it as a land that comes into play tapped, or you can play it untapped, or you can play it as a spell. And this is one of those decks that could probably use some things like that. For example, I really love Tangled Florahedron. And I don't mind playing 3 forests, because they're going to give you an option to ramp from playing it on turn 2, guaranteeing you have a 3rd mana, and sometimes giving you a 4th mana when you need it. Or you can just play it as a tapped land if you want. Same thing with some of these other cards. You can take a look through if there's something here that makes sense. McKinley Stampede is okay. I kind of like Sejiri's Shelter. Just the ability to protect a creature from taking damage or dying or being countered or whatever. Some of those are available to you out there. But the other things that you can get access to that are fairly inexpensive are these dual lands. Dual lands are really important. Being able to play your spells on time with the exact correct mana in play is very, very important. And one of the things that these do, even though they come into play tapped, is they guarantee that if you need double green, you'll have a land that taps for green. If you need double white, you'll have a land that taps for white. When you get into buying rare cards and using rare cards, you'll find that those rare cards are more powerful than the commons that we're using here. So I'm going to recommend those rare cards, and I'm also going to recommend picking up a couple of these evolving wilds. So I'm going to pick an evolving wild and play a couple of them. The evolving wild allows us to get a couple of extra landfall triggers, because not only does it come into play, it sacrifices, finds another land, and that land comes into play. So that's kind of a nice little synergy with a deck like this. So now we're playing some Tangle Florahedron. We're playing some Sejiri Shelter. Those are all acting like lands. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lands that are also spells. And we're playing 4 more lands that act as 2 colors, and 3 more that'll help us fix our deck. I think this deck as an artisan deck is pretty good. So now I need to test it out. And the only way we test it out is we save it, and we find a friend, and we challenge them. So let's try playing another game. I will play against your starter green deck, and we'll see what happens. And then we can try building your deck. But now you kind of saw how that works. How deck building works, how to edit your deck, what to look at as far as editing is concerned, how to build a deck from scratch. One of the great things about coming into our store when we finally open post all of this pandemic, we have an entire box full of take a card, leave a card, from which we have built, all of us drafters have built decks for new players all the time. And we would like nothing more than to build some for you and give them to you so that you can play them with your friends, you can play them with your ma, and then come back and play us. Because having more people is the best. Having lots of people is the most fun. So I'm going to keep my hand. Here's your turn one. My turn one, I'm going to play Evolving Wilds. I'm going to sacrifice it to find a basic plains, and it comes into play tapped. And I'll pass the turn. On my turn two, I'm going to play a forest, and I'm going to play my Tangled Florahedron guy. So this is going to allow me next turn, if I draw a land, to get landfall value out of my territory size cap. Hopefully. Or I can just play a Wildwood Scourge for 2 next turn. And that would be okay as well. Nice. So you've got yourself a little bit of ramp that also draws you a card. That's a good card. All right, so what do I want to do? I'm going to play Scythe Cat and Plains, trigger Scythe Cat, pass the turn. So now you have ramped up. You've got 4 mana, and if you play a land, 5 mana to cast what could be a really big guy, or you can just kill my dude. That's fine. Not a bad solution either. You're going to attack for 2. All right, here we go. No attacks. All right. Save it, holding it back. All right, so that means I'm going to play Wildwood Scourge for 3. And pass the turn. So here's the Hydra that you brought up that inspired my deck. And it's going to get better every time I play creatures that put counters on things. Which I intend to do pretty much from this part of the game forward. Oh, we got a Tower Scout. So this would have been an opportunity in response to his ability to tap that to get an extra mana so that you could play 2 3-mana spells in that turn. If you were going to cast him, one of the things you need to do is you need to hit the control button. By hitting the control button, you are in complete control over all of the things that you're going to tap. So, what do I want to do this turn? Well, let's see here. This turn, I want to put a glass casket out, and I want to take away your Llanowar Visionary because it gives you extra mana I don't want you to have. And I'm going to also put your Tower Scout into a glass casket so that I can then attack you for 3. Oh, and I'm going to play land. Gain a life, and attack for 3. There we go. So you're starting to see how the removal aspect of the game works, how that's important. Your ram through slowed me down. My 2 glass caskets in 1 turn clearly have set you back a little bit. So we got a little bit of an ebb and flow going. Again, I want to keep in mind you have four lands in play. The cards in your hand, we're going to edit your deck so that you can improve it and play stuff with your Yorvo guy and stuff like that. So let's see here. We want Basri's Acolyte. This is one of the things that is really important, is to know what synergy is. Because all of these things care about creatures getting counters on them. Basri's Acolyte comes in, puts counters on things. Wildwood Scourge sees another thing, got a counter. Wildwood Scourge gets a second counter on it. I've basically amplified the ability by using cards to specifically work together. So now not only are they just doing what it says on the card, it's like they're Voltroning together. Voltron might be an old word. Ask Aislinn about Voltron. Probably knows. She might even be too young. But it's like when all the little robots get together and they make one big robot. That's what I'm putting together on this in this particular deck. So I'm going to put a Hydra's Growth on Basri's Acolyte. And it's going to get some counters, and then this gets some counters. And I'm going to play Nessian Hornbeetle, and then this is going to get counters, and then this is going to get counters. And I'm going to attack with a 7/7, which you're probably going to block with 4/3. Should probably block it with 4/3. Yeah, that's what I assumed would happen. And then I'll pass the turn. And here's Yorvo. Now, if I was playing with rares, you can bet your sweet bippy Yorvo would be in this deck. Because Yorvo puts counters on himself, gets counters every turn. That was a mistake. You, with your ram through, you should have probably targeted my Basri's Acolyte or Nessian Hornbeetle, because you knew that in one-on-one combat, the ram through wasn't going to help. But you could have probably taken out my Tangled Florahedron or something like that. So I'm going to play my Hornbeetle. This is going to get a counter. This is going to get a counter. At the end of my turn, this will make an insect. So I'm going to attack with these three dudes. I suppose I could attack that guy, but I want to see one more turn. See what happens. You can block my Florahedron, but you can't. You have to block my 9/9. Or you just let it go through and then I won. But now you've seen what the synergy is, how things, when they work together, it's kind of like a really good Lego set, you know? Like all of a sudden, instead of like building a house with your kid sister, like with your younger sisters, like Duplos, you're getting into like the gears and the motors and the engines of things. One of the things that we could do, if you're interested, and you don't have to, but if you're interested, we could do like a Zoom call and you could share your screen and we could take a look at what's in your inventory and see if we can't put together a really good synergistic deck like the one you saw me just build. Would that be something you would be interested in doing? And if so, would Aislinn want to help you with that? Why don't you ask your mom real quick about seeing about putting together some good decks for you, and maybe we can get you something that's kind of tweaked and kind of good if you'd like. Again, it's entirely up to you. If you'd like to do that, let me know, and I will end my stream and I'll switch over to Zoom and I'll send your mom a link on Facebook and we could do a Zoom call that way if you'd like. In the meantime, I'm going to spend more of my mastery points while you're chatting. I definitely want a glass pool mimic. All right, what do I want here? Sure, thanks. Nice. Wizard, inscription, restoration, takedown, version. Magmatic channeler. I definitely want to get these inscriptions because these inscriptions are actually really good. It'll have to be today or early Monday. I can do this today if you'd like. On Monday, I do have to work a little bit, but not a lot. We could do something on Monday if today isn't good, but I'd be happy to do it today. Like I said, pretty much available today. I've carved out this time for you to hang out with you, to play Magic with you, to show you some stuff on Arena, um, because I want you to be able to, work around and play with the system a little bit. And, all right, so let's do this now. All right, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. And I'll send that message to your mom via Facebook Messenger for a Zoom call, and we'll build some decks. All right, let me go ahead and log off. Thanks again, everybody who was watching. Um, I'll be on again, I'm sure, some point in time this weekend, maybe early next week, to play either Arena or Breath of the Wild. Come on by and hang out. We'll see you then. Hang with me. Don't go far. I'll send that link to you in just a minute.